started. All right. This is our lesson overview. These are the words that we're going to cover. We're going to cover the difference between affect and effect, adverse and averse, advice and advise, a lot and allot, already and already, among and between, amount and number, assure, ensure, and insure, and then we're going to get to the B words, the difference between been and been, by, and by, and when to use because and when to use since. And we're going to conclude with some practice. All right. Affect versus effect. A lot of people get these words mixed up, but this is what you need to know. Effect means either to bring about, or if it's used as a noun, it means result. So, I will effect change in this department. I will bring about change. Or, the effect of the rain, the result of the rain, was to make the ground wet. It's almost always used in the noun sense to mean result. It really, effect something is almost always used in business speak or manager speak. Affect, by contrast, means either to influence, used as a verb, its most common use, or emotional expression. So, how did the weather affect your travel plans? Basically, how did the weather influence your travel plans? How did it change them? If you are affecting your travel plans with an E, then you are putting them into effect just as you planned. Nothing goes wrong, whereas if the weather affects it, it changes them, it alters them. In fact, just remember that if it affects something, it probably alters it. A and A. Now, if you're looking at emotional expression, his flat affect after his dog died puzzled everyone. For this one, just remember the connection between affect and affection, the expression of emotional liking for something. If you have a flat affect, your affection is very flat. It's not really there. Next, adverse versus averse. Adverse, with a D, means unfortunate or opposed. Averse means having repugnance. Averse is almost always used for people, whereas adverse is almost always used for things. Let's look at an example. I had an adverse reaction to the medication. Well, we're talking about your body's reaction, not you personally. So we're talking about a thing, not a person, and it's reacting to medication, which is also a thing, not a person. But I am averse to war. I have an aversion. I don't like it. I avert my eyes. A-V-E-R-T, avert means to turn away or push downward usually. So when you're trying to remember the difference between adverse and averse, adverse pretty much always has to do with things, and averse usually has to do with people and a personal repugnance. All right, advice versus advise. Advice is a noun, meaning recommendation. Advise is a verb, meaning to give a recommendation. So, the way I always remember this, if you will advise me, I will follow your advice. They're two forms of the same word, and unfortunately, they're different parts of speech, so don't mix them up. If you will advise me, I will follow your advice. Now, a lot versus a lot. A lot, with two L's, one word, means to parcel out, to distribute. A lot means a large quantity. So, the army allotted each man a blanket. It parceled out a blanket to each man. It distributed a blanket to each person. I have a lot, a large quantity, of books at home. Now, I want to give you a word here about a word that you should never, ever, ever use. It's this one. Never, ever, ever write a lot as a lot. Okay? You see this here? Never write it. Never, ever, 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 ever. I will come to your house in the middle of the night with a red pen, and you will not be happy. A lot, with one L, is not a word. It is not a word in the English language. It is not a word in any language with which I am familiar. Don't use it. If it's one word, it's got two L's, and it means parcel out. If it's two words, it's got one L, it's two words, and it means a large quantity. That's all the a lot there is in English. Next. Already versus already. Okay. Already with two words means all are ready. All the things I just talked about, or all the people I just talked about, are prepared for whatever you're doing. Already, one word, one L, means by a certain time. So, for example, we are all ready to leave. All of us, all of the people I'm speaking for, are ready to leave. Is it morning already? Is it morning by the time of which I speak? I'm awake. I don't want to be awake. I want to be asleep. Is it morning already? By now? No, I don't like that. So, if it's one word, already. A good way to remember this is when you're just waking up from sleep, you kind of fumble all of your words together, and you do that. So just remember, if you've run it all together, is it morning already? Whereas if we are all ready to go, then we are probably capable of speaking with correct grammar and separating our words as we should. Next, among versus between. These two words get mixed up a lot, these two prepositions, and I'm about to explain the difference. Among basically means in and among 3 or more parties. Between involves only 2. Just, the tween in the middle. Okay. My 5 brothers talked among themselves. Because there are 5 brothers involved, you use among. But just between you and me, your breath stinks. There are only 2 of us here in this conversation. I think your breath is terrible, so just between you and me, your breath stinks. Just remember, you can't be between more than 2 things because then you're not in the same. It's a whole math thing. Just don't use between for more than 2 things. All right. Amount versus number. This one drives me up the wall. Can you tell that I'm just a little bit yelling at the internet at the moment? Amount versus number. Use the word amount for things that you can't count, non-count nouns. If you don't know what non-count nouns are, go watch the lesson on nouns in basic grammar. Use the word number for things that you can, count nouns. So, I can't handle that amount of noise. Well, you can't count noise. 1 noise, 2 noises, it doesn't really work, at least if you're talking about quantity of a single noise. So you say, I can't handle that amount of noise. But the number of accidents increased by 10%. Well, you can count accidents. 1 accident, 2 accidents. So for that, you use number. Just remember, if you can number it, if you can count it, then you use number. If you can't, use amount. Next, assure versus ensure versus insure. This one is another one that gets misused a lot. You use assure to mean say with confidence. You use ensure to mean make certain that something will or won't happen. Use insure with an I to mean issue an insurance policy. Really, that's all we use insure for. So, I assure you, your cat is perfectly healthy. I say with confidence, your cat is healthy. Feeding your cat will ensure, make certain it does not go hungry. Or, I have insured your cat against an early death. I've taken out an insurance policy on your cat. I don't know why I would do that. Perhaps I'm some kind of cat-killing psychopath, but that's another question. All right, next. Been versus been. The major reason people get these mixed up is because, particularly in American English, been and been are pronounced almost exactly the same way, especially if you're in a hurry. They do not mean the same thing. They're not even related. Don't use them interchangeably. Use been as the form of to be that goes with has or have. It's a form of the verb to be. Been is a noun that means a container. So, I have always been your friend, or in more colloquial English, I have always been your friend. Throw that banana peel in the garbage bin. Throw it in the garbage container. We don't want you holding a banana peel all day. So just remember, if you're talking about friendship, I have always been your friend. If you're talking about garbage, it's in the garbage bin. Don't ever put your friends in the garbage bin. It's not nice. Next, buy, and buy. Okay, B-U-Y means to purchase, to give money in exchange for goods. B-Y is a preposition meaning near or next to. Buy with an E is short for goodbye. Okay, most people can get this one straight because it's just part of the word goodbye, but the other 2 people do sometimes mix up. So, I need to buy some new shoes with a U. The oak tree stood by the house, always used in a prepositional phrase. If you've forgotten what a prepositional phrase is, go see the lesson on prepositions. And by now, again, we use the form that's part of the word goodbye. All right, because versus since. These 2 words can be used almost interchangeably in English, but there is a distinction between them and you need to know what it is. Because indicates cause and effect, which is why it has cause hidden inside it. And since usually indicates time. So, again, you use them pretty interchangeably, but if you really want to be precise, because is about cause and effect, and since is about time. Try not to use since for cause and effect, and try not to use because for time. I think people get these mixed up, honestly, because they sometimes think that just because one thing happens before another thing, the first thing must have caused the second thing. That's a very common logical fallacy. Don't do it in your grammar. Our examples. The bird sings because it is looking for a mate. The bird is looking for a mate. That causes it to sing, so we use because. I have been a bird watcher since I was young. In this case, we're talking about a time span going back to when I was young until now. We use since. Now you'll notice that the fact that I was once young in this sentence does not mean that caused me to become a bird watcher. I'm 7 years old. I must love birds. No, that makes no sense. So we don't use because, we use since. However, the bird singing because it is looking for a mate, that is a cause and effect relationship. So we use because. All right, let's do a little practice. Read through these sentences and see if you can figure out which answer is correct in each case. Have you always been so excitable? Students talk among or between yourselves while I grade your 20 math papers. The chairs are all ready or already to be set up. That's quite a large amount or number of chihuahuas. If you don't know what a chihuahua is, it's a dog. I hope the blizzard doesn't affect or effect Mom's flight home. Jared will affect or effect his new plan tomorrow. These adverse or averse weather conditions are making it difficult for planes to land. Cynthia is strongly adverse or averse to the notion of adopting a kitten. And this is logical because or since she's allergic. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. You ready? Here are the answers. Have you always been so excitable? Your clue here was the word have, so we're using the form of the verb to be. We're not talking about a container, we're talking about a state of being, so we use been. Next, students talk among yourselves while I grade your 20 math papers. The clue word here was the word 20. If they produce 20 math papers, there's probably more than 2 students in the classroom. In fact, there's probably about 20. So we tell them talk among yourselves because there's more than 2. The chairs are all ready to be set up. Remember, this is closer to all of us are ready to go than it is to is it morning already. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if we use the is it morning already version, so it's all space ready. That's quite a large number of chihuahuas. Again, I told you chihuahuas are dogs. You can count dogs, 1 chihuahua, 2 chihuahuas, so it's quite a large number. You can number them. And it's not a large amount of chihuahuas because then you're referring to a sort of mound of chopped chihuahua parts, and frankly, that's highly unlikely in English. Next, I hope the blizzard doesn't affect Mom's flight home. Remember, you use the effect as a verb, which this is, pretty much only when you're talking about putting a plan into action or doing what you've said you're going to do. I will effect change. In this case, we have an outside force altering something, so it is affect. Remember, alter, A, affect, A, look for the A's. Next, Jared will effect his new plan tomorrow. He's going to do everything just like he planned it, so he will be very effective. He will effect his new plan. These adverse weather conditions are making it difficult for planes to land. Remember, you use adverse when you're not talking about people. Cynthia is strongly averse to the notion of adopting a kitten. Cynthia is a person, so she has an aversion without the D. And this is logical because she's allergic. You could say since here, but because is more correct since we're talking about a cause and effect relationship. She is allergic. Therefore, it is logical that she wouldn't want to adopt a kitten. The allergy causes the aversion. So we have a cause and effect, so we use because. And that's all for this lesson. Thank you for watching. Educator.com.